Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are exploring the mystical side of life today with Scarlet Raven. She is a seer and a starseed alchemist. Welcome, Scarlet.
Thank you, Linda, for having me.
My pleasure. I'm really interested in your connection with ancient technologies.
So, for me, when I look at Earth and the Earth's experience, and we look back to Egyptians and Egyptian times, and when different sacred sites like Stonehenge were really being revered on the Earth, when they first came to be on the Earth, the technologies used to build the pyramids in such a way that they're basically a technological landmark that brings energy forth from the stars into the Earth, can heal anything in the human body. Those types of technologies to me are ancient in the sense that if we're going to be bended by time, we're currently in a more futuristic timeline than when the pyramids were built. So the ancient aspect is really just about focusing on the time period on Earth when they were more technologically advanced. And to me, that's Egyptian times, that's Stonehenge times. And the technologies that they were using were all utilized via star alignment, Earth, light line alignment with specific stars in specific locations, and then basically integrating people's consciousnesses into building these devices. So to me, that's kind of the essence of the ancient technology that I play with.
As you were talking, it made me wonder if you consider these ancient technologies to be rooted actually as alien technology also.
I would consider myself an alien technology. I think that there's a human consciousness perception that we are Earth-based beings, and then any being that comes from another galactic component is an extraterrestrial being. My perspective is very different. I feel like there is a kind of a type of being on this planet that is primarily Earth-based, but I would say all of us have star origins. And what that means is that source, all that is God, Sophia, whatever you want to relate to calling the creator, is from an intergalactic component. So we were all birthed from that intergalactic component. We happen to be living in a human body on Earth right now for our soul experience. But to me, that doesn't mean that I'm an Earthling. My origins go back to the stars, and I've visited my star hometown. I've had and I have continued communications with beings from where I'm from, which are a very large primary influence in how I understand these ancient technologies. And a lot of the beings that I work with, I think some humans would say, oh, you're working with ETs. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm working with my star cousins. And I think the word ET, it has a morphic field of resonance of something that's almost a little scary. That's what the human mind has done to an unknown component, which is very typical. And so to me, they're cousins, they're relatives, they're star relatives. And if you look at the natives and how they spoke to their star relatives, it was in the same way. It was in a very woven, loving way of knowing that there's beings that aren't in human form right now that are helping and guiding us come back to a higher state of consciousness. And that's always going on. So if people want to call them ETs, and some of them look like classic ETs, like from the movies, like they do look like that component, and some of them look very humanoid. They're just so varied.
So it's very interesting because in the ancient mystery schools, some of those healers, magicians, if you like, they really had an amazing understanding of energy and could do some very amazing things. I know in the mystery school that I studied, which is the Hawaiian mystery school, ancient kahunas could chant and direct the flow of lava away from the village or homes or sacred land. And I know I've studied a bit of Egyptian mystery school as well. And I'm curious actually what you would say about the Sphinx. Have you worked with the Sphinx at all?
I feel like I have, because I have a cat that I live with who is a reincarnated soul from ancient Egypt. And he's a very big personality. And I've had communications with him where he kind of shows me pictures of different ways of seeing that they had in Egypt, which allowed them to enter into these higher states of consciousness. And to me, that's been a helpful component of understanding energy from the perspective of the Sphinx. I can share a little bit. I feel like I don't know a whole lot, but the small amount that I know, cats or Sphinx or that genetic structure carries quartz elements in its third eye. So when they're putting them in a prominent place in front of these different entrances, it's almost like a power center projector into the beyond while you're kind of going inward. And so for me, it was the symbology of how expansive the consciousness can be while you go inward to receive that knowing.
There are some people who think that the Sphinx is actually kind of like a cosmic library or a connection, a link to universal wisdom.
Almost like a link to the Akash kind of a thing.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, could be.
I'd love to know how you became aware of how to work with these ancient technologies and how you actually work with them here in earth plane life and in your mind.
It almost feels like it's all in my mind in a sense. But I, like anyone else, I had traumas in my childhood and traumas in my teenage years. And I have always been extremely sensitive. I've always been able to communicate with animals and plants. And my challenge was being okay relating to humans. So I think when I got into my early 20s, I made a life decision of, if I'm going to stay on this planet, because to me, I know this could sound intense, but to me, killing myself and leaving planet, it wasn't the end of anything. It was me going back to an origin that I felt more comfortable with. And so I kind of got to this place in my life where I said, okay, if I'm going to stay here, I'm all in on the research of how to be happy here, or I'm going to leave. And I decided to stay here and dedicate every part of my waking life to discovering true happiness on the planet. So that led the next 10 years of my life to traveling to different retreat centers and studying with different monks, shamans. I did so many things in so many countries. And throughout that process, I was stripping away what was not me. And I was coming more into contact with the source of within me, which was allowing me to feel more happiness and joy. And so as that momentum picked up, I was able to start deciphering different layers of knowing in the subtle energy realms. And now I can ask a question to the source within, or the source that of all that is. To me, it's the same thing. And sit, and the answer will come. And if it doesn't come immediately in meditation through a vision or communication with beings, it'll come as a knowing a few hours down the line in that day. But no matter what I want an answer to, I don't use Google. I don't use any external technology source, because I know that I am a much higher, much more advanced technology source. And the answers that I'll receive from these knowings won't be adulterated by someone else's limitations.
Or manipulated.
Manipulated is a much better word, because that's exactly what they're doing through those external sources. They're just distractions so that the relationship that I created with myself, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of energy. It took a lot of focus. I have a really firm commitment into always advancing myself. So I think when people get fascinated, like, why do you have all these gifts? It's like, I'm committed to developing these gifts. Every day that I wake up, I go through my practices. I'm always using those muscles, and every day my visioning gets stronger. My ability to have a higher vibrational frequency in the cells of my body is always elevating. And I'm consciously doing that because I'm the creator of my reality, and that's the reality I want to create for myself. So I like to kind of point that out to people because I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, I meditated yesterday and I didn't get anything. And I'm like, this is a lifelong journey commitment. And the whole I need to receive results now mentality will get you nowhere in this world. It won't even get you close to anything that makes you think you're happy. You'll be so far from being truly happy. And that matters because it's in those happy and joyful vibrations that you are actually in a higher enough realm to receive these teachings. So I have different council meetings with these beings. They are intergalactic beings from where I came from. They talk to me about technologies. The cool thing about this was the visions came before I studied Egyptian technology, and then Egyptian technology confirmed the vision. So I was able to solidify how important it really was. But they showed me this technology that I could build. It's called a star chamber. And basically I can build this chamber utilizing materials from the earth. I can construct it in a certain particular place utilizing the light lines and then having different star configurations. It's just going to be dependent on the location. And then when people go into this chamber, they're going to experience Christ consciousness vibrations in their cells. So they'll be getting kind of a levitated feeling. And that's something I'm moving towards to create right now. So that's been permeating within me that I'm going to be inventing that and showing other people how to invent these ancient technologies. Anyone can tap into these fields and bring about this stuff and then have it be a livable experience here on Earth. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I started watching Ancient Origins on Gaia because I was just kind of drawn to it. And he went through and explained why the vision I had will work. And so through that show, I was like, oh my God, that's what I was shown to build. And this is why it's going to work. And so to me, that's just another component of the universe talking to me saying, you're not crazy, Scarlett. This is real. You are going to build this. This is going to upgrade and create part of the new Earth. You know, like they were doing it back then. It's actually very common. It's not this special thing that I have. Like in the new Earth, this is a very common way of living and upgrading.
Very, very interesting. So, do you think that was the purpose of Stonehenge?
Stonehenge, to me, it's a multi-dimensional communication facility. So the way that they arranged the stones, if you stand in the center, you're going to be in a very high vibrational vortex. And from that place, if you attune your consciousness to the same vibration that you're feeling in your physical body, you can communicate, you can light travel, you can wormhole travel, you can bilocate. So the density that we think we are is just that. It's a density that we think we are. But when we raise our consciousness to have a greater understanding that every little cell that I have is 99% space, and the more consciousness that I activate on being able to manipulate is not the right word, but to be able to craft in that space what I want as the creator of this world, what I want to see happen, is how they move those stones, is how they built the pyramids. You know, they knew that even though a stone weighed 50 tons, every different particle that made up that stone is 99% space. And when you can wrap your conscious understanding around that, space is there for you to create within as the creator being. And if you align your consciousness with that knowing, you can literally manipulate the denser vibrations in 3D. And that's when these consciousness technologies weave into the three-dimensional field and allow us to experience them in a more physical way. So to me, Stonehenge is like, it's a time travel portal in a sense, or intergalactic communication device.
You know, Scarlett, I used to run a journey circle here in my home. I had a lovely group of women that would meet, and we would take inner journeys to the Egyptian temples. And we did a journey to the Great Pyramid, and we lay down in the, I guess I would call the tomb structure where they would put the sarcophagus. And in my experience, I felt all of these like tingles coming through my body. And at the end of our journey, we would share our experience. And there was actually a woman in that group who traveled to Egypt and went through all of the temples, who somehow magically found herself alone in the burial chamber in the Great Pyramid and laid down where the sarcophagus would be. And she felt all of those tingles like little bubbles in your body, effervescent, coming through her. And she said, Linda, that's exactly what it was like. So I do think there was some kind of energy, some kind of ancient technology embedded in that stone, and perhaps to help the spirit of the pharaoh traverse into the afterlife. It could even be the memory of the spirit crossing, perhaps. I'm not sure what it is, but it was so fascinating that we both had that experience. Her really laying in the tomb and me through my shamanic journey. It was amazing.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I see that as like if you were to continue to practice that journey, because you obviously already have a powerful container if you're having those, if it's already coming in physically, if you practice that, I think what we would understand it now would be like remote view, but you wouldn't be remote viewing. You could bilocate to that time period inside that pyramid and have an actual physical experience with the Egyptians during the time, maybe during the burial or whatever. Like that is all of what's available. When you share that, it's like, you got a real life experience of that.
Yeah, I did. And it's interesting you say bilocate because I've actually done that by accident once. And it was like really, really wild. It was just so fascinating.
Those bubbles, that effervescent feeling, what I see that as is a very high consciousness offering to you in your physical body. And when you are feeling that, and then you maintain that level of consciousness, there is no disease, there is no pain, there is no suffering, there is no irritation, there is none of the things that we see in terms of contrast in our three-dimensional environment. It's all evolution and consciousness and creating an expansion. And to me, that's the foundation of the new earth, is how do we get to that effervescent, bubbly feeling? And then how do we maintain that multidimensional living structure in our consciousness so that we are at that heaven on earth level consistently?
That's the trick, isn't it? How to maintain that consciousness. I'm curious about the structure that you will be building sometime in the future.
I don't want to share too many details until I actually create the first chamber, because it's a contained energy ball right now for me. So I'm going to leave parts out intentionally, but I am shopping for a home, a horse ranch with land. When I get that place, I will build the first star chamber in one of the bedrooms. That way I can have physicists come and do energy testing and show the left brain beings how important it truly is. And then the beings that are in trust and faith can come in and actually have the physical experience. That's kind of all wrapped into my mystery school that I'll be building on the property as well. So it'll be a teaching component. It'll be something that people can see that I channeled and brought through to give them the knowing that they can do the same thing, and also have a medicine for maintaining that level of consciousness, because the star chamber will be kind of like that effervescent feeling of what you shared. So people can go in, they can kind of get the imprint of what a high consciousness sensation would feel like. And once they have that feeling, they can always return back and amplify. So it'll be a good foundation for people that are challenged to kind of like let themselves go and feel more upgraded. They'll not be forced to upgrade, but their physical body will receive it and they'll be able to experience it.
So do you think some of these technologies that you've connected with go back even further than ancient Egyptian, maybe
Oh, yeah.
Atlantis,
Oh,
Lemuria?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my relationship is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. It's going back, not even from our planet. I think our planet is, one of the umpteenth planets that's gone through this cycle with a certain amount of beings going through their karmic soul schools. So I think we're pretty far down the line from the origination of all of this stuff. The Ancient Origins show that I was watching, they do actual archaeological, research to have scientific understanding around timelines. And they're dating stuff back 200,000 years as ancient technologies. And we all know that the ocean is, 95% basically unexplored. So I think a lot of, the Atlantean societies with those different star technologies are underwater at this point. So we can't timeline them. But even the technologies, there's one called Adam's calendar. They're about 150, 200,000 years old.
It's really fascinating to explore all these potentials, possibilities. There's a part of me that thinks that there are so many different dimensions that can be explored. And it's just the choice of what we want to explore, really.
Yeah, I used to do readings for people that were kind of like multidimensional healing sessions. And one of the technologies that would come in would be like if the client had this imagination of who they wanted to be or how they wanted to feel, it would actually build almost a parallel dimension for them in their consciousness. And I could point to it in their subconscious and merge it with their conscious. And then they would start having, like, they merged the dimensions. And now that imagination that they so wanted became their reality. I don't do really one-on-ones that much anymore, but I found that the parallel dimension, it's a great consciousness tool for healing because you can totally reconstruct a virtual you, and then you can consciously merge it in meditation. And every time you do it, it's almost like a homeopathic dose of the higher vibrational you coming in now. It's a really cool tool.
Scarlett, you have an online mystery school. Maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say my soul joy right now is being able to offer, like the stuff that we shared in our podcast today, be able to offer specific teachings to people on a very regular basis and allow them to upgrade their consciousness in a consistent way. So I started an online mystery school that's very affordable because it's through Patreon. So for $3, $5, $9 a month, you have access to all of these teachings on a consistent basis. And whoever is in the mystery school can ask me to do specific channelings or transmissions for them if they have a specific question or they have a perceived block. And it will allow me to share what I'm seeing and feeling to many, many people, because I really feel like the new earth is here and we are consciously shaping light right now into a new reality. And for those who are willing to unplug from the old earth and what was and totally committed to only looking forward, then they will get so much out of this mystery school. And I'm just so excited to be linking arms with so many other star seeds and so many other light workers. This isn't just this lifetime that I've been waiting for this, but I've been waiting for this for many lifetimes and it's finally here. And there's some days where I just cry because I'm so happy it's finally here. And like the weight of the net of the 4-dimensional, consciousness pain that was put over humanity is gone. And we can just excel and create. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. So I really want people, I'm like, come on, join me. This is fun. Like, this is the new earth. So that's kind of why I built the platform. And I went away from more one-on-one interactions to do more group interactions because we really are all rising up together.
Why don't you share your website or your contact information?
Okay. My personal website is scarlettraven.com and my last name is spelled Ravin. So that's the difference there. My alchemical website, if you need physical, emotional support, that's whitefoxnectars.com. And then the mystery school is under the branding of Naked Starseed. So nakedstarseed.com will show you how to get to the online mystery school, and together we rise.
Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Linda, for having me.
And thank you for tuning in this week to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Come and visit me at thoughtchange.com. Check out my membership group, Alchemy from the Inside Out. Bring a little magic into your life. That's it for this week. Bye for now. Remember to subscribe. We'll see you again next time.